Imagine you have to choose between saving your own life or saving everyone you've ever loved. That was my reality. I was the beloved queen in the most powerful empire on the planet, and a secret I carried could either be my shield or my death warrant. When a decree was sealed with the king's ring, marking my people for total annihilation, I had to make an impossible choice: stay silent and try to survive, or do something so dangerous it was basically a death sentence. This is the story of that gamble and the immortal words that sealed my fate: if I perish, I perish. The Persian Empire was the most powerful kingdom on earth, a beast of a nation stretching from the edges of India to the upper Nile in Egypt. It was a world of impossible wealth and absolute power, all held in the hands of one man, my husband, the king. But don't let the golden marble fool you. The court of King Ahasuerus, or Xerxes as you might know him, was a snake pit of secrets, ego, and deadly ambition. One wrong move, and you were finished. Favor was a currency that could lose its value overnight, and into this glittering, lethal world I was thrown. An orphan girl with a secret big enough to get me killed. My name is Esther. I'm Jewish, living in a land that wasn't mine, and I was chosen for my beauty to become the new queen. But what no one knew was that I was also chosen for my heart and my mind by a king who, against all odds, had truly fallen in love. Still, being queen was like being a beautiful bird in a golden cage, my life tied to the moods of a man who was both my loving husband and an unpredictable, absolute monarch. This is the story of how I, a quiet queen, was faced with an irreversible death sentence for my people and forced to make an impossible choice. It's the story of a gamble so dangerous it would either save a nation or get me executed, a gamble that would give birth to a celebration of survival that still echoes today. It all started, as these things so often do, with a man's pride. My husband, King Ahasuerus, though I was not married to him then, decided to throw a party. Not just any party, a 6-month-long festival to show off the greatness and splendor of his kingdom to every official from his 127 provinces. In the capital city of Susa, there were endless feasts on marble courtyards, wine flowed from golden goblets, and the king soaked in his own glory. It was in that haze of drunken power that the first domino fell. On the final day, Ahasuerus, his mind soured with wine, ordered his wife Queen Vashti to come and show off her beauty for his guests. It was degrading. He was treating her like another one of his treasures, not a person, so she said no. Her refusal was an incredible act of dignity, and it sent a shockwave through the court. The king wasn't just angry, he was furious, his pride wounded. His advisors, whispering in his ear, turned Vashti's personal stand into a political emergency. What if all the women in the empire hear about this, they argued, and start disrespecting their husbands? It sounds like a bad drama, but the consequences were deadly real. Ahasuerus deposed Queen Vashti, banishing her forever. He then made her punishment a law of the Medes and Persians, a law that once written could never be taken back. Vashti was gone, and her fate was a chilling warning about the king's power and how fragile life was in his court. With the queen's throne empty, the king's men came up with a very fitting solution: a kingdom-wide beauty pageant. Messengers went out to find the most beautiful young virgins and bring them to the palace harem. I was one of them. My name was Hadassah then. I was an orphan, raised by my older cousin Mordecai. We were Jewish, from the tribe of Benjamin, our family exiled from Jerusalem generations ago. Mordecai was a man of quiet integrity, who sat at the king's gate and understood the dangerous games played in the court. He knew our Jewish identity could be a death sentence, so he told me to hide it. He gave me a Persian name, Esther. It means hidden. I entered the king's harem, a strange world of rituals and preparations. For a full year we were given beauty treatments, all for one night with the king. I chose to listen to Hegai the eunuch, who was the custodian of the women, and spent a lot of time asking him questions about the empire. He was quite surprised that amid so much splendor, I preferred to tap his knowledge and wisdom, so he took me under his wings. When it was finally my turn, something unexpected happened. The king was used to women who were either terrified or overly ambitious. I simply presented myself as I was, just as Hegai had advised. That night we shared our minds. We talked for hours, the whole night through, about philosophy, about art, about the burdens of leadership, about his vast empire. He saw past the face that had brought me to the palace and discovered my knowledge of politics and diplomacy. He was captivated. In a court of beautiful but empty shells, he found a mind and a spirit that matched his own. He wasn't just impressed, he was in love. He told me he felt like he was seeing for the first time. The next morning, he announced that he was drawn to me more than any of the other women. He looked at me not as a prize, but as a partner. He put the royal crown on my head and made me his new queen. An orphan, a hidden Jew, was now married to the most powerful man in the world, a man who loved her deeply. While I learned to navigate my new life, my cousin Mordecai kept watch from the king's gate. One day, he overheard two of the king's guards plotting to assassinate Ahasuerus. Mordecai got a message to me, and I went straight to the king, making sure to tell him it was Mordecai who saved his life. The plotters were executed, and Mordecai's loyalty was written down in the royal records. It seemed like a small detail then, a forgotten good deed, but it was a seed that would bloom at the exact right moment. Things seemed peaceful. The king had a queen he adored, and a loyal servant had saved his life. But allegiances in this court shifted like desert sand. The king promoted a new man to be his second in command, his grand vizier. His name was Haman. Haman was a man eaten alive by pride. The scriptures call him an Agagite, which many believe means he was a descendant of the Amalekites, my people's ancient and bitter enemies. The king ordered everyone to kneel before Haman, and they did, all except one. Mordecai refused. As a Jew, he would only bow to God. When Haman learned Mordecai was a Jew, his personal grudge exploded into genocidal rage. He decided to destroy all Jews. He went to the king, a master of manipulation, and planted a seed of doubt. There is a certain people, he said, scattered throughout your kingdom, whose laws are different, and who don't obey you. He painted us as a threat. To close the deal, he offered to pay a staggering 10,000 talents of silver into the treasury. The king, in a moment of shocking indifference that showed just how fickle he could be, just handed over his signet ring, the symbol of his absolute power. The money and the people are yours, he said. Do what you want. With that ring, Haman wrote the decree. On the 13th day of the month of Adar, every Jewish person, man, woman, and child, was to be murdered. The date was chosen by casting lots, or pour, a game of chance to decide our annihilation. The decree was sealed. It was law, and while Haman and the king sat down for a drink, the city of Susa was thrown into chaos. The trap was set, the clock was ticking, and their only hope was me, a queen who didn't even know her people were condemned to die. When news of the decree spread, it was like a tidal wave of terror. Mordecai, learning of Haman's plan, tore his clothes, covered himself in sackcloth and ashes, and walked through the city crying out in grief. His wail reached the palace gates, but he couldn't enter. Mourning clothes were forbidden inside. I was still in my gilded cage, completely unaware. When my maids told me about Mordecai, I was worried. I sent him fresh clothes, thinking he was just in need, but he refused them. This wasn't just his sorrow, it was our people's catastrophe. Confused, I sent a trusted eunuch named Hathach to find out what was wrong. Through Hathach, Mordecai told me everything. Haman's plot, the silver, the death decree. He gave Hathach a copy of the edict. The message he sent back wasn't a request, it was an order. I had to go to the king, beg for mercy, and plead for my people. My first reaction was pure terror. I sent Hathach back with a message explaining the deadly rule of the court. Everyone knows, I told him, that any man or woman who goes to the king without being summoned gets put to death. There was only one exception. If the king held out his golden scepter, you lived. And I added, my voice full of dread, he hasn't sent for me in 30 days. The genuine love he had for me, the connection we shared, had it faded? Was I just another wife now? To approach him now, uninvited, was to bet my life on a love that might have cooled, on the mood of a notoriously unstable man. Mordecai's reply was a punch to the gut. No sympathy, just brutal cold reality. He told Hathach to tell me, don't think that because you're in the palace you alone will escape. If you stay silent now, help will come from somewhere else, but you and your family will be destroyed. His words were a chilling warning. My crown, even my place in the king's heart, was not a shield. If my people were annihilated, I'd be next. But then he asked a question that changed everything, a question that reframed my entire life. And who knows, he asked, but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. That question hung in the air. What if my life, being an orphan, being chosen, finding love with the king, wasn't just a series of accidents? What if it was all leading to this one terrifying moment? It was then that I had to decide what my power was for, my own comfort or my people's survival. The weight of that question crushed my fear and turned it into steel. I was no longer just a pretty queen. I was a leader. I sent my final message to Mordecai. This time it was an order. Go gather all the Jews in Susa and fast for me. Don't eat or drink for 3 days and 3 nights. My attendants and I will do the same. It was a call for spiritual strength, a unified plea from a people on the edge of extinction. And then I made the declaration that would define me. When this is done, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law. And if I perish, I perish. It was a statement of complete surrender. I was accepting the very real chance of my own death, but I was choosing to act anyway. It was the moment I stopped being a Persian queen and became Esther, the woman who would fight for the Jewish people. The gamble was on. The choice was made. After 3 days of fasting, it was time. I put on my full royal robes and my crown. I wasn't a scared girl anymore. I was a queen, and I was going to use every bit of authority I had. I walked to the inner court of the palace and stood where the king could see me from his throne. I was breaking the law. My life depended on his next move. He looked up. He saw me. For a breathtaking second, nobody moved. The entire court was still and in shock. You could hear a pin drop, and then his face, which could hold such terrifying fury, softened completely. Instead of anger, his eyes filled with the love and concern I knew so well. He held out his golden scepter. I was safe. I approached and touched the tip of the scepter. The king, his voice filled with genuine warmth, said, "What is it, Queen Esther? What do you want? Ask for anything, up to half my kingdom, and it's yours." It was his usual grand promise, but I knew now it came from his heart. Still, I couldn't just accuse Haman, his most trusted advisor. The king was fickle. I had to set the perfect trap. So I made a simple request. "If it pleases the king," I said, "let the king and Haman come today to a banquet I have prepared." The king agreed. His curiosity piqued, and Haman was so incredibly flattered. A private dinner with the king and queen. It was the highest honor he could imagine. And so the king and Haman came to my banquet that night. At the banquet, the king asked, "What is your petition, Queen Esther?" "Up to half the kingdom it will be granted." I smiled and said my request that day was for the king and Haman to come a second banquet the next day, and then I would tell the king my petition. The king agreed. Haman left the palace floating on his ego, but on his way out, he saw Mordecai, who again refused to bow. That one small act of defiance ruined Haman's perfect day. I later learnt that he went home fuming, bragging to his wife and friends about his wealth, his sons, and the queen's banquet. "But none of it means anything," he spat, "as long as I see that Jew Mordecai at the king's gate." His wife suggested, "Build a pole 75 feet high, and in the morning ask the king to have Mordecai impaled on it. Then you can go to your banquet happy." Haman loved it. He ordered the gallows built immediately. That same night, the king couldn't sleep. He called for the royal records, and a servant happened to read about Mordecai uncovering the assassination plot. "What honor did Mordecai receive for this?" the king asked. "Nothing," his attendants replied. Just then, Haman walked into the court, early to ask for Mordecai's execution. What should be done for the man the king delights to honor? The king asked him. Haman, blinded by arrogance, thought, who else could he mean but me? So he described the most lavish celebration he could dream up: royal robes, the king's own horse, a parade led by a noble prince. The king nodded. "Great, go at once," he ordered. "Get the robe and the horse, and do all of that for Mordecai the Jew. Don't leave anything out." Haman had to find his mortal enemy, dress him in the king's robes, and lead him through the city shouting his praises. He rushed home in shame, but before he could even process it, the king's men arrived to take him to my second banquet. He arrived, shaken, to find me and the king waiting. During the banquet, as the wine was flowing, once again the king asked, "What is your petition, Queen Esther? Up to half the kingdom it will be granted." The stage was set. This was the moment. I took a breath. "If I have found favor with you, your majesty, grant me my life. This is my petition. And spare my people. This is my request, for I and my people have been sold to be destroyed, killed, and annihilated." The king was shocked, his love for me making the words a personal wound. "Who is he? Where is the man who has dared to do this?" I pointed my finger, an adversary and an enemy, this vile Haman. All the color drained from Haman's face. The king flew into a rage, not just at the betrayal of his authority, but at the thought that someone had threatened the life of his queen, the woman he adored. He stormed out into the garden. Haman, desperate, threw himself onto my couch, begging me to save him. Just then, the king walked back in. "Will he even assault the queen while I'm in the house?" he roared. It was over. As the guards covered Haman's face, a eunuch pointed out the final damning piece of evidence. "Your Majesty, do you see that? A pole, 75 feet high, stands by Haman's house. He built it for Mordecai, the man who saved the king. The king's order was swift. Impale him on it." But we weren't safe yet. Haman was dead, but his decree was still law. I fell at the king's feet, weeping, begging him to stop the plan. The king, now completely on our side, gave Mordecai and I his signet ring. "Write a new decree yourselves," he told us. "Seal it with my ring." We couldn't erase the first law, but we could write a new one to fight it. Mordecai, now in Haman's position, wrote an edict giving all Jews the right to assemble and defend themselves. It turned our scheduled day of massacre into a day of battle. When the day came, we fought, and we were victorious. My story is a testament to how courage and faith can turn the tables, even when the odds feel impossible. It shows how the choice of one person can save a nation and create a legacy. In the aftermath, Mordecai and I created a new tradition, so this reversal would never be forgotten. We declared that the 14th and 15th days of Adar should be celebrated every year. We called the festival Purim, named after the Purim, the lots Haman cast to choose our day of doom. What was once a symbol of cruel fate became a symbol of joy and deliverance. Purim became a time for feasting, for sending gifts of food, and for giving to the poor. It's a holiday of costumes and celebration where the book of Esther is read aloud. When Haman's name is read, everyone makes noise to drown out the name of evil. The ultimate gamble paid off. I, the orphan who became a queen, risked everything and saved my people. My story became a lesson in courage, strategy, and the profound power of a hidden identity revealed at the perfect moment. Mordecai was made second in command of the empire, and he used his power to protect our people. The tale of Esther is a reminder that even in the darkest of times, when evil laws seem permanent and your enemies are in power, courage can forge a new destiny. My declaration, "If I perish, I perish," wasn't a cry of despair. It was a statement of freedom, the freedom you find when you choose purpose over safety and in doing so change the course of history forever. This is Bible Behind the Scenes, where we uncover the stories they might not have taught you in Sunday school. If this story of Queen Esther's ultimate gamble moved you, hit that subscribe button because we're just getting started. Comment below what surprised you most about Esther's story. Was it learning that her Persian name literally meant hidden? That Haman's own gallows became his execution site? Or that a sleepless king's midnight reading changed everything? Next, we're diving into another incredible story of divine timing and hidden heroes that you won't want to miss. Until then, remember, you might feel like you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, but God may have positioned you there for such a time as this. Your moment to make a difference might be closer than you think, and like Esther, your courage could change everything.